Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar of CSAP Corner Toronto chapter. I am Nilesh Shah. I am the chapter lead at CSAP Corner Toronto chapter. Today's webinar is on Azure Data Factory, presented by Shahriar Nika, who is a CSAP Corner MVP. I'll first introduce CSAP Corner and then hand over to Nick Shahriar. He will continue the presentation on Azure Data Factory. If you have any questions, please type those questions in the chat section or question section. The recording is on after the presentation is completed. The recording will be posted on CSAP Corner website. First of all, let me start by thanking sponsor. CSAP Corner Toronto chapter events are sponsored by R&D Design as well as Microsoft for providing us support, venue, and everything. CSAP Corner Toronto chapter is chapter across the world in many cities. Toronto chapter founder members. I founded this Toronto chapter last year. Sariar, who is a senior technical team lead and senior BI consultant, also former MVP and also current CSAP Corner MVP. So I will hand over now to Nick Shahriar to start the presentation on Azure Data Factory. Nick, over to you. Nick, don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see you and we can listen you.
Okay, so if any question comes up, just give me a shout because I'm going to hide this. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Nick. I'm located as Toronto, Canada. My specialty is focused on data. I'm not going to go through this. I just want to say thank you to Nilesh, who does lots of work instead of me. So thank you very much, Nilesh. About me, I'm basically a data engineer. I'm a backend guy. I deal with data only. Currently, my main focus is on big data and basically moving to the cloud. I've been working with IBM, LGS, SNC on cloud technology, on Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Azure SQL, Stream Analytics, Data Factory, and other components like Azure Logic App and Blob Storages. These are my informations. If anyone needs them again, or we'll provide them again at the end. Again, I'm going to skip this. Just another small thank you to C# Corner. I'm skipping a lot because I have a limited amount of time and I want to be able to wrap up all the requirements. So story short, we're just going to focus on Azure Data Factory. My main focus will be on the third and the fourth one is how to build Azure Data Factory, and more on the pipeline, which will be how to build framework pipelines or pipeline frameworks. Master pipeline, it will be included. I will not be creating them, but I will show you what I have been doing. The other features that you see, they're crossed out because they won't fit in this presentation and they're very complicated. Your requirement is, of course, Azure subscription, Azure V2, storage, and Azure Storage Explorer to make your life easy. What is Azure Data Factory? Again, very simple. It's an ETL tool in the cloud. One of the things lots of people tell me, oh, then it's like SSIS. Well, the answer is no. There's a couple of reasons the answer is no. First of all, we're dealing with new and brand new technology, which is a completely different beast. So please do not compare these two together. You may compare a component or an activity within SSIS and Azure Data Factory. For example, how to delete a file. Okay, fine, that's okay. But you cannot compare these to each other generally. I'll give you one simple example is when you're moving data from point A to point B using SSIS, wherever that package is located will be using the amount of memory or RAM for that, basically SSIS, which is doing the magic and pushing the data from point A to point B. But in Azure Data Factory, it's not like that. You have to know how many nodes you're gonna get. You have to know how many CPUs, because you're not dealing with one machine. So that's why as a good example, that's why I'm saying, hey, these are two different beasts. There are other components that you have to deal with a lot. Other services. A good example is Azure Databricks and Azure Logic App. So you cannot compare these together, okay? You have to think differently. For a successful project, you have to change your mind, look at it from a different perspective. Now you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of pipelines and maybe 100 Azure Data Factory. Each data factory will contain 10 to 15 as a good practice, 10 to 15 pipeline, and each pipeline could contain or connect to 5 services. So this is going to be very big. So what is the rule of thumb? Is the consistency in your framework design. Just imagine you've got 100 pipeline and you want to make one minor change. You better be very organized, otherwise you're going to get into trouble. You better have a brilliant framework so you can inject the missing or the error that is being caused in your pipelines, and you can basically fix them. How to build a Azure Data Factory? Well, I'm talking about within the data factory. Within the data factory, there's lots of features you have to understand before really getting to the pipeline. Like the most important thing is, to me, is connection object deployment and reusability. So these are very, very critical. The reason is, wait a minute, what happens if I do a connection, I do connect to the client, it's deployed perfect, no problem, let's consider it's bulletproof, and I hand it over for deployment. When it goes to deployment, they just come and say, hey, your connection objects are not according to our policy. So that's where you get into trouble. So deployment and reusability is very critical, especially when it comes to connection and of course the pipeline itself. Naming convention is very critical. If you look at the right, I have orders at the folder level within the pipeline. I have the same name in the data set. So if there's a bug in my system, or if I want to hand this to someone junior, they can easily go everywhere, just trace down the word orders. So if I script everything down to JSON and I say, hey, find the word orders, boom, I can know exactly how many orders I have. So when I mean orders, I mean pipelines. I mean data set, not the physical order, okay? How many orders I have, how many data sets my orders have, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the rule of thumb. Now we're going one step deeper. So a framework sample. So this is a very good sample. If you can see, I've the consistency naming here. So if you remember, I said, hey, client. In this case, I have text to CSV. Let's assume the word text to CSV is client. If you look on the left side, I have this text to CSV everywhere. In the data set, I have 3 of them. I'm just going to move around. If you can see the cursor, you can see 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's a consistency in the naming everywhere from that object or that line of business that I'm working on. So it's very easy to trace. The post naming is very critical as well. As you can see, I've selected ISABLB. Okay, IS stands for Link Services. ABLB stands for Azure Blob Storage. Okay, and the source on the left is, they have the source. So what kind of source? It's a blob storage and so on. These naming may not be correct for you guys, or you may not find these because the client had tweaked and changed some naming the way they wanted. Okay, so back to building a data framework. Okay, bottom line to me is, how could you create a framework that you can hand it over to someone junior and basically move on? That's the biggest goal. Currently, the biggest issues that I'm seeing, companies do not do R&D. They do not do proof of concept. They don't get a second opinion from someone else. They just Google something and they just say, hey, we're done. No, it does not work like that. You will hit the wall. I'll give you one simple example. In SSIS, you just go and delete a file, or you move a file or copy a file. How long will it take you? Let's say 1 hour, 2 hour. I don't think it's going to take more than 3 hours for even a junior to find out and Google this. In Azure Data Factory, it easily can take you over a day just to move one simple file, because Azure Data Factory cannot move files.
Sorry to
That's
disturb you,
simple.
Nick. We lost you for some time.
Okay, I'll repeat it again. So Azure Data Factory in SSIS, a simple example is we move files from point A to point B. A junior person can Google it or find it out in, let's say, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours maximum. In Azure Data Factory, you could not do that. That's why I'm saying, hey, you have to think differently. The reason is Azure Data Factory cannot move files around. It cannot do that. You have to use a different service with a combination of Azure Data Factory to do that, and it will take you over a full day. Trust me, it will take you over a full day. And that is just for someone, junior, just to get the ball rolling, to do something as a proof of concept. So heads up, the more organized you are and the more you don't rush into it, you will be successful. If you rush into it, or manager is pushing without R&D, without proof of concept, without second opinion documentation, you're going to hit the wall badly. Okay, so let's create a pipeline. So how many pipelines do I need? Let's say I need a pipeline that converts from text to CSV. Maybe text to CSV is not a good example. Text to SQL might be a better example. I can have another one, text to CSV, with a combination of Azure Data Factory and Azure Databricks, so I can have two. Okay, and other components, text to Azure SQL Data Warehouse. I can have one pipeline that does the copy only, one that does the delete, one does archive and move, and so on and so forth. You will have to do some other frameworks, for example, zip and unzip. Make sure you know the limitation of each component and tool and activity. And of course, at the end, you need a master pipeline, which I'm going to design most of these today, but not to a SQL Server. So how do I design? Let's think simple. I have one scenario. Just consider the scenario on the top. I'm going to read the files, and then I'm going to loop through them, and then I'm going to, I don't know, let's say copy them, or let's say unzip them, okay? The goal is a couple of things. Number one, how I design. Number two, how I design a framework that I can reuse it, and how I can flip very easily from, let's say, copying your file to unzipping your file, okay? So this is not related to the zipping or unzipping or copying, but this is how I design. I create a framework, a pipeline. I put a wait, I test it, it works. Basically, I deploy it, run it, it works. Step two, let's say I'm doing some copy. I copy it, test it, then I get rid of the wait. This is how I basically step by step into my design. Of course, the design has been designed, it's on a paper, it's been confirmed, and so on and so forth, okay? And then as time goes by, I may do some tricks, like I do something as inserted to a store procedure because I couldn't find out what the variable was. I couldn't do like some kind of limitation in Azure Data Factory. So this is another good trick I do a lot. And finally, basically, I remove those components. So the component on top, which is a web data source, sometimes I need to move it to a different location. So a different location is a different pipeline. So in step 4 on the top, which is the web, and step 5, which is the execution pipeline, guess what? The deletion source went into another pipeline, and I renamed it to clean, copy clean. Okay. So what finally the master, and then we're going to go to the presentation. So this is a master. What is a master? The master will call multiple pipelines. Very simple. All you have to consider is sequence call, parallel call, and the dependency. dependency, I mean data dependency or table dependency. Sometimes it's about folder dependency. You're copying blob storage. But anyway, so in this scenario, I've got all three of them almost, right? There's a dependency, there's a parallel sequence. But as time goes by, you find your issue. So in this, I know I see two, maybe three issues. One of them is this is wrong. The other is the stock item depends on the city. And finally, the stock item depends on the order. So you have to be careful. So in the beginning, when we had this, everyone said, oh, it's close, it's good. But as time went by, we found out, oh, we made big mistakes. So the good thing about this type of approach is I only change the master. I don't need to change the pipeline. So that's another way you have to think. You have to think, how can I run the orders without any dependency? Or will my orders control the dependency that is required? Okay. So what I would do is I may create two master tables, one in the green and one in the blue, or maybe two different Azure Data Factory completely. Okay. Again, this all comes down to your approach and the design, and of course the requirement from the client. So any questions before I move to the demo? Nilesh, can you tell me any questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at the questions page. There are none as of now.
Okay, so let's continue with
the introduction. There are none.
Okay, so first, I just want to show you what.
Please.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to continue. So
Nick, you can continue, please. We are not able to listen you.
I'm okay. So right now I've only got basically two services. One is a blob storage and one is an Azure Data Factory. I have them right now, they're running. So once you click on your Azure Data Factory, this is what you see. Again, look at the naming convention. So mine is dev version 01 Azure Data Factory. This system is called ABC Insurance. And I gave it a second name like Atlas or something like that, or you can say sales or policy. So when you click here on the monitoring, the Data Factory opens. I just want to close this. So this page opens, you click on this pencil type, and basically you will have an empty pipeline, empty data factory. But in this case, for the presentation, I've got all of these ready for you. So number one, you can see I've got a master. Look at the folders. I have the client here and client here. So the naming convention is PL. PL stands for pipeline. DS stands for data sets, and the data set is Azure Blob Storage, and this is a blob storage. Okay, so if I open this, I can see, oh, it's getting the files, is doing some filters, and then it's looping through files one by one. So basically, it's going through files one by one. But where is it pointing to? Like, where is it pointing to? So let's physically see the files first. So these are my files. In my blob storage, again, this is Azure SQL Blob Storage Explorer, which, Azure Storage Explorer, which I said is one of the requirements. And I have a folder called raw data files. And these are the three files that I have. So I've got two CSV and one text file. These are the real data, and these are the real file that has been deposited by the client. And there's one extra that is not required, or let's say by mistake it was copied here. So back to the data factory. I want to read those files. I want to get rid of the README file, and then I want to, I don't know, loop them one by one. Okay, so let's start with the first two, and then I'm going to run this so you can see what happens. So I go to debug, and then I say run. Sorry, I have to move this here on this side. So it tells me this is running. You can see the you can see that it's processing. You have to click on refresh. Unfortunately, there's no other way. And as you can see, it ran the first one. Now it's on the second one, and everything ran perfectly. So what did this get? It should get a path. So if you click here, it tells you raw data client. So that's exactly what, oops, sorry. If you see raw data file client, you see, and then what did it pass to it? It passed a list of files, a list of objects. So what was the output of it? Oh, the CSV1, CSV2, and the README file. So far, so good. So this got passed to the next step. The next step is the filter. So what did the filter get? It got the object. If you look at this name, the children's of this object. What did it do? Or what was the output of it? It processed three files, but the outcome was 2. So 01, 02. The README file was filtered out. So that's very good. And finally, it went to the loop. And so I created a loop that is doing something. So let's see what is it doing. Again, the goal is I'm creating a framework for my pipeline. So I'm going to open this up. What is it doing? It's calling another pipeline. So where's this pipeline? I'm going to open it up, and it's called copy. Where is it? I'm going to tell you it's a general here. So I'm going to open. So the copy file should be doing the copy, right? I'm going to open this up. Well, it's not doing a copy. It's just waiting for 2 seconds or 3 seconds. I forgot 3 seconds here. So here I can put a copy object. Okay. So if I'm looking at a designer perspective and a designer as creating an Azure Data Factory framework, I've created a good framework, which I shouldn't have called it client. I should have called it framework, that basically gets a list of files, filters them, and loops them. So wait a minute. In this loop, I can right now say copy. Basically, I can clone this. I can clone this. If you want to clone this again, you can just click here. I can clone this and use it for copy. I can clone this, use it for unzip. I can clone this, and so on and so forth. Okay? So what I have done is I've cloned this and I renamed it into unzip. Let's check. So I'm going to compare the client with the unzip. Okay? They're identical. The only difference is they're pointing to different folders and paths. Okay? But there's one small change. So again, let's open the client first. The client was pointing to the copy, and we know that the copy was this one, which was basically doing nothing. I just want to show it to you. You see, it says call this pipeline. So again, the client is calling in the loops, is calling another pipeline with these parameters. So we'll get to the parameters later on, because if you want to copy something, you have to, each time is a different file name, maybe a different path. So you have to pass on the file names to it, okay? So again, the goal was to copy these two together. I cloned this to this, but in the for loop, I've made some changes. I'm calling somewhere else. I'm calling something else. So I'm going to click here. In this case, I'm calling the unzip. You see the unzip. So what's in the unzip? We know in here, I didn't put anything because it's a demo. This is a wait. But in this, what are we doing? It's a copy. Well, wait a minute. The name is unzip, but here it's a copy data. But the name is copy data unzip files. Well, unfortunately, Microsoft has combined the activity object, which does the copy, and the unzipping into one object. So I cannot change its name as in copy data, but I can give it a clear name that this activity or this object is doing an unzip. Okay. So, and by the way, this is really working. So I'm going to run the unzip because the client did work. So I'm going to run the unzip. So before I run the unzip, let's go here. I have a zip here, which has got 1, 2, 3 files that are zip, and I'm going to refresh just in case. So there's only 3 files here. I'm going to go here, back to, this is exactly the same thing that I cloned. Again, the goal is creating a framework at the pipeline level. Okay, so I'm going to run this. Unfortunately, again, you have to click here, refresh if you want to see the movement. So it's doing the unzip for the first file. And what is the first file? If I click here, it tells me it's the 01. Okay. So while this is doing the loop through 01, 02, 01, 02, and the other one, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click refresh and see what's happening. Oh, popped up. So this got unzipped. Let's see what about the other one. Oh, the other one just got unzipped now. The third one, not yet. I'm just refreshing. I think one of them is a bigger file. I don't remember. Yeah, it is. It's double the size. Let me just go back and see if this is finished. Sorry. Oh, it's still running. Oh, it finished. Okay, so I just unzip. I know in this file it's only got 2001, 2, and this one has both of them. So let's just check one of them. Oh, 2001 file, which is a CSV file. And in this one, 2002, and the last one, I know I put both of them on purpose. Okay, so I just read unzip file, zip files, and I unzipped them. So wait a minute. Again, the goal was to talk about frameworks. I showed you how to create a framework at a high level for reusability, is looping through files. And I showed you, I cloned this and I went and just changed the inner loop to point to somewhere else, of course, with the right parameters and so on and so forth. And basically it's doing the unzip. So first thing is, from a pipeline, your pipeline has a master detail, okay? This one played the role of a master, which I copied it here. So that framework for this type of purposes, which is just looping files, is perfect, okay? Now the question is, this is at the master level. What about at the child level? So at the child level, was the zip file is a good example. So before I created the looping and all of that, or before or after, or depends on what your approach is. So what I did is I said, hey, let me do an unzip file first. So let's go back and see how I created another framework within a framework. So I'm going to delete this again. Yeah, I'm going to delete it. Press refresh just in case another refresh. So wait a minute. I'm claiming that my child package is a framework. How could that be? Well, let's check the parameters of it. The parameter says connect to this zip file with this within this folder. So this is the zip file within this folder. Now, if I run this package only, so basically I'm not looping anymore, I'm not doing anything. I'm just passing I'm just passing these to this object, and this object output is in the same folder and it does the unzip. So can I run this? The answer should be definitely yes. Oh, this is the file that takes time. Okay, so we're gonna wait while that is doing the unzip. I'm gonna explain to you what do I mean by a child framework. So this child framework is is working on my environment. You might say, hey, wait a minute, what happens if this goes to dev? In dev, guess what? These parameters will get overwritten by the parent. So this is the trick. The trick is, how could I make this work in a dev environment on my machine and maybe plug in specifically, maybe in production, this may not be the folder name. Maybe they might have a different folder, right? So if I can do this on my machine, how could I pass a parameter to override these parameters? So this is, again, this is the child. This is the child, which is getting called by the parent. So the parent passes those parameters and gets overwritten. To my eyes, this is a perfect pipeline framework at the child level, not at the parent level. The parent level was the one that we looped. Okay. Any questions here? Because now I'm gonna create just this one to show you how easy it is, and I'm gonna do it step by step. Any question? Nilesh, how many more minutes do we have? Sorry, I didn't look at the
We
time.
have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, let's make it real quick. Okay, so I'm not going to create a brand new.
I'm reading the questions pan.
Sorry.
But I don't see any
Question.
So you.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, I don't see any questions coming in the questions pan, so you can continue, Nick.
Okay. Okay, so just to save time, because I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say, oops, sorry, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say, create me a pipeline. So I'm side by side. This is let me close all of the pipelines. So I've got this brand new pipeline, and this is gonna be like the client. So I'm gonna do this side by side so you can basically see what I'm doing. So first thing is, of course, the name of the client file. I'm gonna cheat a little bit, so I'm gonna do this. As I said, I put the weight. I can't have this because I need another name. I put the weight. I basically do this. I do a publish, and I'm just gonna do this trick once for you guys to understand and see it. And I'm gonna run it and see if it works. This will be a 1 second thing. Did it work? Perfectly. So I have my pipeline working. So let's start. I'm going to say get. What else do I need? I need 2 parameters for my get. So I click here on this white, I go to parameters. And again, because I don't want to waste time and I want to make sure the names are the same, this is the path that I have. Yeah, so I'm going to say go here, parameters, new, and I'm going to give this. And because I don't want to type this, I'm going to nick this from here. So I just gave this a path and see the data set. So if you see the red here, it means you haven't set this. You have to go and set it. So I'm going to go and basically loop through the files. Okay. This is a data set. So I have a data set here. So I should create a data set, but because of the time that we don't have, I should create a data set called client1. So I should have a here folder client1 with the connection, everything, and so on. Again, trying to save time. So I'm going to pass this to it. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it now. It works. So what did I pass? If I click here, it says no parameters. Nothing was. So, and I see weird names. So pop1, pop2. So this was not what I was working. So if I come here and I say, hey, field list, remember those objects that I used to tell you that I showed you before? These are it, child items. So these are the components that we need to use. And maybe last modified date, another one. Last modified date. Okay, so I'm going to run it again one more time. So the first time you saw that the names were not there, the file name. So this is the second time I'm running it. You see that it changed. And what did I get? Here's the file name. You see, file name, file name, file name. Good, perfect. So filter. Now I'm going to filter it real quick. Filter. I connect them. Again, sorry, I want to cheat. I want to save time. One of the most important thing is description. Definitely, please put the descriptions there. Trust me, it has saved my life 100 times, these descriptions, okay? So the settings is a little bit complicated, which I am gonna talk about this. Just give me a second. So as you can see, it's telling me, it's giving me a warning that you need to set this up. Part of it is not set. So let me just click in. So what this, after it works, it's gonna pass its components to this. But how would this understand that what component is here? Well, you have to know a little bit JSON. So it says the activity, because all of these are activities. The activity, and it gives you the name here, the output child item. What is a child item? Well, guess what? Click here on the metadata. This is it. These are the child items that we passed on. So you're getting the reference and placing it in it. So will this work? It should work technically, unless I forgot something. I'm gonna just make sure. Oh, the reason is I didn't save the name of this one. Okay, back to here. I'm gonna debug. Good. I'm gonna just put this here. Something went wrong. I think it's here. It just needs me to confirm. It needs me to add the filter. Let me just, excuse me about this. It just needed me to add an extra filter. So this filter is basically filtering out, it's getting all the items.name, and it says anything that ends with the client.csv, I want you to filter. So if I go here, client, oops, sorry, not this folder, this folder, client.csv, client.csv, it only filters them out, anything that ends with that, and basically run it. So let's trace it down and see what I have. If I go to my filter got all its information from here. What was the output of it? It worked on 3 files, and the output is 2001, 2002, and so on and so forth. The last one is, how many more minutes do we have?
You can extend by 5 minutes.
Okay, so story short is the for loop. I'm not gonna. It needs a sequence. It has to work as a sequence or not. So now the for loop needs information from here. The for loop can get its information from here, or reference to be more specific, but it'll be wrong. You don't want the README file there. You need to bring everything from here. So again, I just want to save time. Sorry about that. We're doing in a rush base. So if I go here and I say add this here, so it says from the filter, give me the output and their values. So now I cannot run it because the for loop doesn't have any object in it. Again, to trick the system, I can say, wait, go back, and finally run it. Okay. But the question here is, what did I pass to the for loop? I don't know what I passed to the for loop. It says two what? Is it the right ones? Is it so you cannot find this through here. Like whatever you do, you cannot find it. But anyway, I think you got the story of how I create frameworks, how I differentiate between a child versus a child that is being reusable. A good example is copy, unzip, and from a parent to a child. So right now, I'm just going to go back just to, again, save time to the client level. So what I do, I had the replace if you wait. So instead of the wait, I passed this. I replaced it with this, which is calling this package or pipeline with these parameters. So the first parameter is item.name. So what is item? First of all, where are we? We're in the loop. We are in the loop. So a loop has an object called item that tells you item.name. So if you go back to the component that this had provided, one of them was item.name. You see, this name is the one within the loop. You might say, then where's the item? Well, this is the, I'm trying to show you how I got the name, how I got, I'm not going to use the word, how I got this from here into here. But your question might be, hey, where's the item? Because you saw the word item, okay? Some of you might say, hey, where is the item, open bracket? So the item is an object within the for loop. How does it get set? Well, when you were setting the loop first, which you have to come out of the loop to see the settings, you can see the active here. It says this object dot output value. Behind the scene, this is the items. Okay, so items has these objects. So I can say item dot name. Where did I get the name from? I got it from here. Okay. So this is about it. I know it was very fast, but unfortunately, this is the amount of time we have, and hope it was productive enough. Back to you, Nilesh.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. If you have any question, then you can type on the questions box. Or you can enter into the chat value.
If you can put it in the chat, because I cannot see the questions, it's so small.
I'll read out. If someone posts on the question, I'll read out.
Yeah,
But
I'm trying to open it up. I can't. I don't know why.
Okay, so Chandrasekhar is asking, if possible, please give sample for a dependency scenario in master pipeline.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question. So in my master pipeline, this is a good example. Okay. I have client and insurance. If you look in my client, so this is the client. So let me just okay. Do you have my screen? Hello? Hello? Hello, Nilesh?
We are not able to see your screen, my Nick.
Can you share it?
I made you presenter, but I cannot see your screen.
Can you do it again? Because one more time, please.
Okay, I changed back to mine. Now I am making you presenter again. I see the standard screen, but nothing. I see now. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, good. So this client one, I just want to delete it because I don't need this one, and this one, we don't want to change it. Okay, so the question was dependency. So there's a variety of dependency. First of all, there's dependency at the Azure Data Factory level, which I'm not going to talk about. It's very complicated, but I'm going to talk about dependency at your data level. Okay, so I have client and insurance. So before you issue an insurance, you need to have the client's name, first name, last name, gender, and so on and so forth. So this is calling the client, and this is calling the insurance. So this has a itself. So I know the primary key of the client exists in the insurance table, right? So I have to run the client first before I run the insurance. That's a good example, because behind the scene, maybe there's a store procedure or maybe there's a technique that goes and gets the client's information, client's ID, and puts it in the insurance. So this is a good example of master package. But this is very easy, very simple. In some cases, I have multiple master packages in one Azure Data Factory because the client sometimes wants to cherry pick. They want to only run the client, or they say, you know what, we only want to run the insurance, and they have good reasons. Plus, it works. The reason is, for example, some insurance company, or to be specific, some reinsurance company, they don't care about the client's name. It might sound strange. They don't care about client. They want to know about money. They don't care what's the client's name. They want to know how many clients they have, but not the client's information. Okay. Any other questions? How expected are? Sorry, there's a question that I
How
cannot.
exceptions are handled? Varad, Varad Rajan is asking how exceptions are handled.
Exceptions as in like errors? What kind of exceptions is he talking about? Business exceptions,
Not
error
mentioned,
handling?
but we can. Yes, error. It's what he's.
Yeah, if it's error, well, first of all, in the output, when something goes wrong, you'll see, let me see if I have this open. Yeah, so here you will see an error, another column here. At this point, I was debugging this. Debugging does the running, but sometimes what's the difference between trigger? Well, trigger is something that will happen in production, okay? So if I run this, okay, it's running, but you might say, hey, Nick, you're refreshing. There's nothing. We don't see anything. Well, this is the real run, and it will save the logs. You have to go here. Now it's going to show this section that you're seeing here now. If an error occurs, here it is. You can find out the errors and the exceptions that's going to happen. In this case, I didn't force an exception. Sorry, I didn't force an error, so you can see an exception. But that's a good question. Maybe in one of my presentation, I'll add something like that. But the goal of this presentation was to how to create a framework at the master, at the child, and Azure Data Factory framework. Okay? But good question. I'll add it next time, maybe. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm seeing just 1 minute. Chandrasekhar wanted to ask something. He raised a hand. Can you type in your question, please? So Chandrasekhar is asking, is orchestration concept applicable in ADF?
Okay, I don't know what orchestration concept is. Sorry, what is this?
Okay, Chandrasekhar, you need to explain your question. Is orchestration concept applicable in ADF? So please, can you be more clear, or give us an example of something what you are asking for?
Yeah, the automation. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure it's clear. Yes, the answer is yes. So, okay, I got the question. I found it. So there's something called trigger. Okay. So I can create a trigger, and I say, hey, what is a trigger? A trigger is like a SQL job. Consider a SQL job. You can set it up, run every day and blah, 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 all that good stuff, and then activate it, like enable, disable. Like I'm comparing apples with orange. A trigger is like a SQL agent, okay? So I'm activating this. It's got a name and blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. I don't know what the settings is. It's once a week, once a month, and it's basically running. Now I can go to my master, and again, these, you cannot just close your eyes and do this. This has to be, there's lots of work behind it to see, hey, could we run this every day? Could we run this every hour, or how it's done? But anyway, you can go here and say, sorry, you can go to the trigger and say, I need to add a trigger to this. Guess what? I just designed a trigger there. And I can say, hey, I want to choose this trigger. And it will say, hey, this is the trigger you're selecting. Are you sure? I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to say, okay. So now you can see there's a trigger here. So whatever I set here, let's say I set, I don't know, once a week or once a day or once every 12 p.m., it's gonna fire off this master package. And this master package is gonna call the client and it's gonna call the other pipelines. So if I have technically 10 pipelines, or I wanna go back to my presentation to kind of make it a little bit more, oh my God, this is in front. Sorry, give me. So assuming this is my package, sorry, my master package, and this is correct, like assuming I have the sequence parallel and the dependency is correct, assuming it's going to fire this every whatever I set the trigger on. Okay, does that answer the question or not?
Chandrasekhar, I'm unmuting you, so you can ask. Chandrasekhar,
No,
I unmuted you, so you can ask, please.
Yes, Nikesha, I'm clear with your explanation.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome. Any other question?
Automation of all master packages is the another question from Chandrasekhar Munagala. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. That's another question. Automation of all master packages. So do we have something like that?
Yeah. So again, this is the same question. The thing is that let me just bring it. So if I have master, let's assume this is master pipeline. I don't know. Let me just rename this so it's kind of it basically kind of visualize something. Let's say, sorry, master. I'm going to say XYZ or whatever I'm. So if I have here, I'm just gonna click here. Oh, sorry. Here, so I've got two masters, okay, master A, master B. So this could be doing the entire magic from A to Z, and this could be doing, you know, going halfway, like A to D. Like then I can add two triggers, and I could basically. I think a better example is. I think a better example is on the instead of A to Z. Let me just put. Dimensions, maybe. Okay, so most of you know that every BI or has basically two sets of table. Only one is the dimensions and one of the facts. So assuming this is master dimension and the top one is master fact. So dimensions generally don't change a lot. For example, cities, countries, like I'm talking about general dimensions. Okay, you may have three dimensions. One is the general ones like city, country, and so on. Languages. How many languages get added or changed a day? Almost nothing. But how many countries? Maybe one in every 5 years. But you still want to do an ETL for it. Okay, fine. But client, let's say client's data comes in once a week. So why should I run it every day? So I can have one for the client, which is deemed client, and one is basically the fact. So this is a good example. So I can go here and trigger, give the first one dimension or dimension global, dimension client, and put one for fact. So that's a good example. Okay, did this answer your question? And by the way, one other thing is you can have another master package.
I'm unmuting the question asker. So we can know.
Yes, I'm clear with the
Okay.
answer.
And one last thing is, you might say, hey, Nick, okay, fine, you have one fact and one dimension, but I want to call them sequentially in a correct way. Okay, make another master, and that master is calling this master, and then it's calling this master. Okay? So that's another thing that I do in SSIS a lot. Okay? Any other questions?
All right, Nick, it's time to stop. If there are more questions, I don't see any more unanswered questions in the question window now. But it's time to stop here now. We are at the end of our limit. So if you have any question, all the attendees, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. If you have any question, connect to us, me or Nick on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and this presentation will be posted on csapcorner.com website, so you have all the information. We are also on CSAP Corner, so you can send us the message. And please, if you have any question, please connect to us directly. ADF questions you can directly direct to Nick. So thank you very much for joining. I'm stopping here now. Thanks.
Thank you very much.